Okay, I can, heard someone cough, but can any of you hear the meeting?
No, there's no audio.
I'm going to text Melanie.
No, it's okay, you guys.
All right, now we can hear you. Sorry.
Yes, okay. All right, so Lisa, I think you have. I did not remember that I could be timing. Has anybody been timing? I could have a hiring committee issue. I'm just about, thank you. So the proposed changes, the bylaw and legislative changes that I proposed were again accepted by the committee, and they will go through the 3C2A legislative process in the 23-24 legislative cycle, and I anticipate that they'll be adopted. But I just want to congratulate the Women's Lacrosse team and their success this year, and wish them the best going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, other public comment. So a hand from Stephanie and a hand from Cornelia. Go Cornelia first.
Okay, thank you so much. Mine is very short. I just want to remind everybody that there's the Faculty Association Spring Party coming up this Saturday from 4 to 7 p.m. at Kathy O'Connor's home. An amazing environment. Bring the family, bring the kids, food, drink, music. And also we will be honoring our 2022 retirees, and one of them I know just made a public comment. Let me look around if there's just by accident somebody else there. No, I think Ellen is the only one who is in the room. Please come. We have we will have a great party, and don't miss out on that. The other thing is that also faculty, there's 2 election ballots going around. One is the Faculty Association of California Community College election, I believe, ends at the last day of this month, and then the SPCC Faculty Association election is also going on. So you should have somewhere in your email 2 ballots, and I would like to invite you and encourage you to vote. Thank you.
And what is the deadline for the voting for the FA election?
Oh my goodness, I think next Monday.
I think it's Friday.
It's Friday. Thank you.
This Friday?
It's Friday.
So.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I thought it was quick.
Thank you.
And Stephanie.
Yeah.
I'm here to speak on behalf of the FPSS committee. We just had a meeting this morning with Jean Christina Yerena as a follow-up to our regular scheduled meeting on Friday of last week. And one of the things that that unfolded in our meeting on Friday, now that we're approaching the summer session, is that their faculty are realizing that their students are confused about the summer session offering. And I think many of us are realizing that we're trying something new, and part of that is there's always going to be a difficulties when we change our model. But the biggest concern is that we think that a lot of students are not clear on the messaging that courses are either starting at the front half of summer and can end early, and that many courses will be starting in the middle of summer. So a lot of students are now coming to their faculty members and expressing a lot of concern about that. And one of the things that we really, as the committee members came to a conclusion, is a little bit about the messaging of how we've offered the messaging for our summer session courses. And I think Kim has a wonderful flyer here that shows that Clay College is offering summer session starting June 5th, and it's a 10-week. And so just because of that, just the not clear statedness of the different modalities and the plethora of late start courses, we're starting to see the impact now as students are beginning to register. So that being said, one of the biggest pieces of advice that we gave to the dean, and that we get in as working on it, is to create a different flyer and graphic that clearly shows the different tracks and encourages students to check the start date. However, we can present that in a clear graphical way with very little text is the goal. But the big issue is, in the future, how can we as a college, amongst all the division, amongst different departments within division, create a schedule that is cohesive? Because another issue that we're seeing is that I'm beginning to unfold is that with the 10-week summer session, there's a 2-week overlap, and for students taking an express course, it might eliminate the option for them to continue on with the second half of summer, because the first 2 weeks they would be competing. And many of our students use the summer session, as we all know, as an opportunity to get ahead, where they can take accelerated courses in a condensed time and actually make a lot of progress in their degree planning. But if they're not able to effectively use 2 summers to maximize the amount of courses they're taking, for a variety of reasons, are we really slowing down their degree track and not accelerating it? And so, for example, one of the courses that we are the most concerned with, and just this long-term planning, are courses that have co-reps.
10 seconds. Stephanie.
Okay. And so there will be an email coming out from Dean to all the chairs, and we're going to be asking faculty members to disseminate that to all our students, since we are a fixture where we have consistent contact with our student. But first and foremost, the immediate fire is making sure we disseminate the information about access to summer courses to our students.
Thank you, thank you. All right, any other public comment? Okay, that leads us to the approval of minutes.
I have a question. I notified you I was a proxy. Do I need to
Oh.
say that publicly or? did
I
you
was
want
gonna
me
come up
to?
to that.
Okay,
in
I
a
just want to
moment.
make sure.
Yeah, we have a number of proxies today.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Minutes. Approval of the minutes,
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
thank you for that, okay. Any corrections to the minutes? I know that that's everybody's favorite reading. Right, seeing no corrections to the minutes are approved. Right, brings us to reports. Margarita, can you share the screen so everyone can see what we have on our screen? So this is our new Senate website. It's almost live. You can scroll down. See information and people, be leadership, state resources, SBCC resources, various Senate committees, place for departments and divisions to highlight things, get involved, which is a sort of, it's a chart with interactive videos from department or Senate committee chairs about what the committee does, understand the Senate and so on. So if you have, once this is up, this is a work in progress. So if you have any suggestions for what you think we can add or should add, that would be great. But I think it's much more interactive, a lot of hands in the air. So, yeah, so it's
Really good.
a thanks to Pong, yeah, it's better, so. All right, so we have that, and then we do have a number of people who are not here and who have given proxies. So Jess is also one today. They have an interview or an interview today. Kim is a number of people today. No, you're Russell.
He's coming late.
He's coming late. And you're Chris Johnson. Yes,
That one I knew, yeah.
yeah, so you have 3 personalities today.
All right.
Okay, anyone else? That's your opportunity. Maybe there's another secret personality in there.
Sorry.
Your time is up, right? Okay, all right, so we have a full meeting today, so let's get started with the information items. And first up is someone we all know, former Senate President Rand Napoleon is here.
Question, so I have slides to share, so that's on this computer, yeah?
Should be.
Okay, cool. I assumed you didn't want me to, fumble around with my computer. Okay, so I log into my personal Google Drive or do you
Wait,
want
just
me
go on
to-
the agenda,
Just go to our agenda, so go down to public meetings on the far left.
but the agenda's not up yet.
Okay, that's all Google Word Docs.
Yeah. Oh, no, not on that one, that's just, yeah, no, go in Google Board.
Why don't
No,
you just
go-
pull it up?
I'll let you. And so, we go, yeah, right. I forgot my notes. There we go. So for those of you that saw my board presentation on 4/20, that's last week, April 20th. This is mostly a repeat. But frankly, a lot of this is 10+1, which is why I wanted to come to Senate for this. So here we go. I think there's a good way to present from PDF, so I'll just share my slides with you all. So yeah, a repeat of my presentation to the board of trustees. So I am representing the SBCC Women's Lacrosse team as their faculty advisor. Okay, so let's first talk about the team. The team consists of 16 players. Pictures here. And then a volunteer coach, Paul Ramsey. So for those of you that aren't in the lacrosse world, especially here in Southern California, especially here in Santa Barbara, this man has brought lacrosse to Santa Barbara in a number of meaningful ways. He has lacrosse clinics for kindergartners through high schoolers. He offers a Nike lacrosse camp during the summer. He offers a spring break camp for high schoolers. And I can't even give you his whole resume, but he is also a coach at San Marcos for the Varsity Women's Lacrosse League there. So he is volunteering his time as a coach. And so to give you an idea of how much time he is committing, just on the field with the women players, that's 3 times a week, and then traveling every single weekend. The other picture below Paul is Shannon Keene. Shannon Keene is an SBCC alum. She played SBCC women's lacrosse in 2012, 2013. She then transferred to UCSB, where she continued her lacrosse career there, and also played for their women's lacrosse club team. And so she's back, and she's actually a part-time faculty member. Is that true? I'm not sure if she's faculty or staff. I'm not sure of her exact designation, but nevertheless, she is one of us, and she works part-time in the transfer academy. Oh, and before I move on for this slide, I just want to point out, do you see the snazzy jerseys and the kilts that the women are wearing in their team photo? That uniform was purchased by the women players themselves. So they outfitted themselves literally. So thanks to Ellen O'Connor for highlighting a number of our accomplishments this season and going over the women's Western Women's Lacrosse League information. So at the top, and you have access to these PDFs already, at the top is a live link to our team website. So if you want to know more, you can go there. There's a number of press releases there and our team photos and our team store and a lot of things. So if you want to know more, please use that link. We do have a 10-1 record this season for our playing. The only loss we had was against UCSB in a tournament play. Our record for our division in Western Women's Lacrosse League is 4-0-0. We are at the top of our division. So the season's over. So we did end up number 1. We ended up, thank you. We ended up number 8 in the country at this point for the women's, what is WCLA? Women's College Lacrosse Association for D2 teams. So we are number 8 in the country. We did go to San Diego a few weekends ago for the league championship. So all of California, all of Western Women's Lacrosse Association, not just California, I should include Arizona as well, because Arizona State as well as U of A also are in our league. And I think that's it for out-of-state players, but we ended up 3rd. And just to give you an idea of who is in our league, who is in our, who we play against, who it means that we have this 10-1 record against, teams like Stanford, UCSB, UCLA, a number of CLUs, CSU Fullerton, CSU San Marcos, and so on. UC Santa Cruz, Berkeley, and so on. So we're not just doing well, we're doing exceptionally well. After the league championship, where we got third, we had several first team all league designations. And so I hope you all check out these names. I do know that a number of these names are in classes. It's been really exciting to have, quote, a home game here at LaPlaya Stadium and have a number of instructors come out and support their students. And then I want to mention, and again, these are hot links, so you can go to these and check them out. Nationally ranked players in every single lacrosse category. So Kiara Hofen is #1 in takeaways, meaning turnovers, meaning a change in possession. #1. We have 3 players for nationally ranked for points, 3 players for assists, 1 for earning ground balls, 3 for draw control. So similar to hockey, similar to men's lacrosse, you start with a in men's lacrosse and hockey, it's called a face-off. In women's lacrosse, it's called a draw. So we have 3 nationally ranked players in draws, and our goalie is ranked #12 nationally. Every single statistic that lacrosse refs and administration keep track of, we have players, plural, except for our ground balls and goalie, plural, nationally ranked. And I just want to point out that in addition to purchasing our own jerseys, Santa Barbara City College hasn't had a women's lacrosse team since Shannon was playing, so about 10 years. And the picture on the left is of our humble beginnings. At first, we were not granted access to LaPlaya Stadium turf, and so we were playing at such places like Pershing Park or Ealing's, or we used UCSB's practice field. And so that player there of those women showing up for the practice is our very, very humble beginnings. And before I move on, in addition to our humble beginnings, I do want to share with you all that one of the things we did together right before the start of the semester, I remember this, it was Sunday before the start of the semester, and I rode my bike to it. It was in Pershing Park. We were having kind of a practice, kind of a social for the players to get together. And we all sat around in a circle and we shared our lacrosse backgrounds. So not only am I the faculty advisor for this team, I also have a lacrosse background myself. In fact, I was being recruited to play in college. So when I started lacrosse, when I was a little girl, I played lacrosse because my older brothers played lacrosse. And if any of you are familiar, I was given a fiddle stick. It's about this big of a lacrosse stick when I was 5. So when I went to play in middle school, there was not a women's team. So I had to play with the boys intramural team. And to play with the boys, I had to have a physical examination, as in a doctor had to clear me to play. And I had to meet certain fitness requirements. I had to run so fast. I had to do so many sit-ups. That was in, let's say, 1996. When I shared that story, I thought I would be the only one sharing that story. As we went around the team, out of the 20 players there, there's been some attrition. 2 of the players shared the exact same story. And these are women that were born post 9/11. And this really bugged me, because how could this possibly be? Okay, so moving on. Here we go, 10+1. Our current SBCC organization, sports clubs, in addition to all clubs, fall under student life. So examples of our clubs, and I know you're probably familiar with many of these as faculty members. The ever successful Bio Club, very popular, the Crochet Club, ASU, Asian Student Union, Queer and Ally Club. Ellen is the faculty advisor, co-faculty advisor for that. Women in Science and Engineering, InterVarsity Christian Fellowship, and so on and so on and so on. So if you use my hot link there, you can see all of our clubs. We have probably 24, if not 36 clubs. So I just gave you a couple. Now I am the faculty advisor of a student club. So I just cherry picked some information. So here's some bullet points. Advisors of clubs are responsible for proper supervision of any meeting and or activity. So remember how I said the coach is there 3 times a week for 2-hour practices and travels every single weekend. So myself, as a faculty advisor, I'm expected to also be there. The club advisor must also be present at all events, programs, field trips, conferences, etc., on campus or off campus, and must properly supervise these events from beginning to end. So in 2 weeks, the week before finals, I'm traveling with the women to nationals. And while I'm absolutely psyched and stoked that we got into nationals this inaugural year, yes, we used to have a club, but 10 years ago is a long time ago. So while I'm psyched as a faculty advisor who has, hundreds of students, it's a bit much to be traveling across the country with a sports team the week before finals, when my students, in my opinion, need me as well. Advisors must accompany club members, and here's a sticking point to me. Advisors must accompany club members to conferences and be responsible for the student supervision. Now, this is straight from responsibilities of the faculty advisor listed on our website for student life. So in my opinion, and I think the opinion of many others involved in student life, to have a faculty advisor of a sports team is a little bit awkward. And so perhaps you can entertain that traditional clubs for students, typically clubs, not sports clubs, clubs are typically academic in nature, or perhaps some kind of affinity group where they have a shared commonality, which I think is why the spirit of advisors must accompany club members to conferences is included. There's no conferences to go to for women's lacrosse. There's no seminars to sit in. There's no suits to be worn other than our uniforms. So with this bullet point in particular, what are we communicating as faculty advisors that we are expected of going to conferences? So the Black Student Union, or a previous club, the Black STEM Club, we went to conferences, but athletic clubs are a completely different, no pun intended, ballgame. I also want to, again, being Senate 10+1, I want to draw your attention to AB 7210. Campus service is specifically designated on page 7. So if you're not familiar with the AP 7210, you should be as faculty in this room, because that is where our faculty obligations are designated. So campus service is typically a committee representing your division or your department. And it specifically says that you are, typically on a committee that meets 2 times a month. Or perhaps you're on some national committee or a local committee or a statewide committee, for which that also counts as your campus service, even though it's not local service. And if you're not serving on a committee or having that other off-campus service, then you can represent a campus club. So the fact that these sports clubs are falling under student life, and this is part of your faculty obligation, there is a significant difference between a sports team, not just competing at the level that the women's lacrosse are, but any sports team, practicing several times a week and having games with a committee service. And Dr. Villa-Gomez can confirm this story that I was especially frustrated a couple of months ago with how much was expected of me to basically run and manage this team. And I said, you know what? I could walk away from this team and just be on some committee. And then who would the girls have? And it was because comparing to my colleagues and the expectation there was a disproportionality. And so I didn't do that, but it was at a time where a lot was being expected of me and I was at a pressure point that I wasn't able to keep going. And I hope you can all agree, the faculty in the room, I hope that you have some empathy around that for me and not just me complaining about what I had to do. Because this was a volunteer position for me. I wanted to do this. I'm a former lacrosse player. So what are other California community colleges doing? So I'm only showing 2. So you all know there's what, 115 California community colleges out there. So I'm just showing 2. Moore Park, our very close neighbor, includes all club sports under athletics. And so that figure is actually clickable. So if you click there, it takes you straight to the Moore Park College athletics webpage. Now, Fullerton College makes no distinction between their club sports and their so-called intercollegiate sports. So that's what Ellen kind of was talking about in her public comment. So intercollegiate sports, we are in the division of CCC 2A. And so a number of our sports are in that conference. And when I say conference, I don't mean academic conference where you show up in a suit and watch seminars. I mean an athletic conference. So Fullerton College has a number of intercollegiate sports. Men's, none of these are going to be a surprise to you. Men's football, baseball, softball, soccer, both genders. The list goes on. Fullerton College makes no distinction between those sports that are in the CCC 2A and those that are club sports. So Moore Park, if you go to their website, they have their intercollegiate teams, and then you click a link for their club teams. Fullerton College is just teams that they support. And so I want to bring your attention to this New York Times article. Now it's a little bit old, but I couldn't find a club sports definition that I found helpful. So New York Times, national news magazine, of course, news periodical. And so if you want to click on that link, you can read more about club sports nationally. But the title of the article that I'm quoting, Rise of College Club Teams Creates a Whole New Level of Success. And the part I wanted to particularly point you to is club sports are not intramural sports, but are expertly organized, highly skilled teams that often belong to regional conferences and play for national collegiate championships. And it goes on to say an estimated 2 million college students play competitive club sports compared with about 430,000 involved in athletics, intercollegiate athletics. Let's make that distinction, governed by the NCAA or the NAIA, meaning that there are a number of club sports out there that are not intramural sports. These are not pickup games. These are sports with national and statewide or local conferences that are created and organized and administered in a number of different ways, and that aren't necessarily at the intercollegiate level, and nevertheless are highly competitive and organized, and it is basically a sports team that requires sound management. So I'm bringing this up. And I'll also share with you that when I was in graduate school, I went to Boston University. That's where I got my PhD. I was on the cycling team, which was, quote, a club sport. We reported to athletics, just like the intercollegiate teams did. We borrowed their vans and we traveled all over the Northeast. We traveled every single weekend to races. And then a number of our cyclists, not myself, continued on to nationals. And I didn't mention this at the board meeting, and my husband got mad at me, and so I'll mention it now. My husband was one of those that went to nationals, so good on him. So while we have our sports team under one of our sports teams, and men's lacrosse is the other, under student life, I'm not going to say that we're the only California community colleges to do this, I'm just saying that this is something that we can have a conversation around our organization at our college level. Which brings me to Title IX documentation. So again, hot links provided for you all, and you can check these out if you want. So legally required are 2 documents. Now, why is a chemistry professor now educated on Title IX and sports and equity and all of that? It's because it had to be. So the first document that you can link is our Equity and Athletic Disclosure Act. I don't know if this is pronounced EDA or EADA. I mean, this is beyond me. But the last one I had access to was 2021 to 2022. So you can check that out and you can look at the numbers yourself. And then the other thing I want to draw your attention to, I think this is the R4 document. And it's entitled the Statement of Compliance of Title IX Gender Equity. So for those of you that aren't familiar with Title IX, I know on this campus we have Linda and you love her, and she does a lot of investigations of gender discrimination and perhaps sexual assault. And so perhaps on this campus, that's what we think of when we say Title IX. Title IX is actually legislation originating in 1972. And it was actually for equity in women's sports. Now, if you read the legislation, I don't even think sports is called out in it, but basically the language around that legislation is, hey, if you're offering something to men at your, institution, you also have to offer it to women. And so I am not an expert at all of the details, but that is the history, a very brief history and information about that. So to share with you, to meet Title IX in 2013, let's say, you have to meet one of 3 prongs. So if you look at that R4 form, you will see our justification of meeting one of those 3 prongs. The first prong is proportionality, meaning the number of female athletes, percentage that are playing sports at your college must equal the percentage of female students that you have, full-time credit students. The second, and by the way, we don't meet that, and I'll show you the numbers in a moment. The second prong is that you are actively expanding your women's sports program. So if you don't meet proportionality, then you have to be showing a good faith effort in expanding your program. And it can't just be, hey, we've talked to some, women's sports players and, we're thinking about it. It's that you have to show the path that you're making forward. So we also didn't meet prong 2. So we are compliant in currently compliant with Title IX because of prong 3. What is prong 3? Prong 3 is that you are you have done everything that you can to entertain any expansion of your program, and they're just simply, and maybe I'm not getting this exactly right, maybe we can get into a pedantic argument, but that we aren't getting or that there isn't interest in expanding our program. And so part of that report, I just grabbed a quick screenshot. So locally at our high school level, we have badminton, lacrosse, and ski and snowboarding as, let's say, varsity teams in our local high schools. And we are highlighting these 3 because these are the 3 sports that we don't have here at Santa Barbara City College. So when we do, I believe this is true, when we do an intake of students, when they apply to Santa Barbara City College, there's a brief survey that says, hey, are you interested in any of these sports? And that's where this data is coming from. So in terms of badminton, we had apparently 20 students. Lacrosse, out of the, we have no no students participating in that sport locally. So lacrosse, we have over 578, and it's not clear to me whether it's men's lacrosse or women's lacrosse, but lacrosse, that's a lot of local players. And so 27 of the ones that applied to SBCC said that they were interested. Ski and snowboard, we have less than half, and 17 said, yeah, hey, I'd like to do this at Santa Barbara City College. So keep this in mind and then move on to more statistics. So who are our local schools? SBCC, clearly that's us, UCSB and Westmont. So, and this information came from athletics themselves, and this was shared with the volunteer coach, Paul Ramsey. So the reporting year is 2021, 22. So here's our full-time undergraduate credit, undergraduate enrollment, because Marcia Croninger had that question for me. Why is it 6,000? Why is it 19,000? Full-time. To play a sport at the intercollegiate level, you must be full-time and you must be a credit student. Same is true for our league. So even though we are a club sport, our players had to prove that they had a minimum GPA and that they were enrolled in at least 15 units. And then that roster and information was signed off by an academic advisor and sent to the our local association to prove that. So that our students could
Great. I just want to let you know you're at 25 minutes. If you just give us a sense of how much more time you think you need.
I'm agendized. I'm not a public comment.
Well, it's agendized for 15 minutes. That's the next comment is. And I'm just. I just.
Interesting that you're saying that to me, because the last time I was here, I got cut off for public comment, right? And now I'm agendized. So yeah, I'm not at 15 minutes, but
No, you're at 25.
okay, do you want me to stop?
No, I just asked to just to give us a sense. Which I do in other meetings that give time, and I'm sorry that that's so surprising to you, but just.
Is that true? I don't know. 4 more slides.
Just checking.
Well, like I said, the last time I gave public comment, I was cut off, so I just wanted to make sure that I wouldn't be cut off this time. And so when I was academic senate president, which I'm not anymore, you know, when folks went over, I just kind of adjusted the agenda as such.
Well, that's actually makes sense. As academic senate president, we have a full agenda and you at the same time as Beth has for information items. So we want to hear this, we're listening to this, if there's interesting information, but maybe we can move towards the end of it slightly faster. Please.
Sure, and then the senators can discuss whether or not you do this to other folks that have been.
Say it's on the agenda, and it's on the agenda with a time. So you can check over there on the agenda and you'll see it says you for 15 minutes and it says Beth for 15 minutes under information.
And we have adjusted in the past. I'd like to hear the rest of this and I actually have a few questions.
Yeah, I'd like to hear the rest of it too.
We do clarifications under information.
Yeah.
I would appreciate it, given the agenda and given the fact that public information says 15 minutes, if we could finish as expeditiously as possible so that we can hear the questions from the senator.
Yeah, sure, I was doing that already before I was interrupted, so I'll continue to do this in an expeditious manner. So as I was saying, Santa Barbara City College, to meet that first prong of proportionality, we need 118 more women players for SBCC in our intercollegiate teams. UCSB, much larger school than ours, much more full-time credit students require 32 only, Westmont 40. So compared to the local schools, I would say that there's a great, I think the way you pronounce this word is possible, but I could be wrong, not an English. So again, information provided by athletics. Now this is dated September 15th, 2022. We have the different sports listed here for men and women. And I want to point out, again, we have 16 players that consistently show up at games. So compared to other women's sports on our campus, compared to their rosters, we are one of the biggest teams on campus. And then you'll also notice the percentage that are male college students versus female college students to equal that 100%. So as a faculty advisor, as the sorry, I'm just really like thrown off now. As the faculty advisor, as the volunteer coach, there are a number of wheels that we are reinventing this season. So for example, I had to argue for scheduling practice time at LaPlaya Stadium. And in fact, this semester, unfortunately, one of our fitness practices got canceled because the men's football team needed to practice. They're off season in the spring. We have scheduled scrimmages, games, and tournament play. I have organized myself the team travel nationally and locally, which has included air transportation, ground transportation, and overnight accommodations. I already mentioned that our players ordered jerseys and equipment themselves. And by the way, when we asked for playing time at LaPlaya Stadium ourselves, we were told that we must buy netting to stop our balls, because our balls flying through the air, if we miss a pass, are hazardous. I'm not sure how a lacrosse ball is that much more hazardous than, let's say, a baseball, where our players play in Hershey Park. But nevertheless, that was what we were told, so we had to purchase $10,000 worth of equipment. Now, luckily for us, Paul has lots of contacts, and so we were able to obtain that equipment as a borrowed kind of way. We've been paying for referees and athletic trainers through one of our students' Venmo accounts, and we must have referees and we must have athletic trainers at every single game. We've also done a number of our own fundraising. So we did a car wash in IV. We've done a taco night. We've done a pizza night. I have gone to the foundation not once but twice to ask for money. And also thank you to VP Villagomez for helping us fundraise for our national trip in a few weeks. And then of course, there's also reimbursements, which Vice President Arnold can confirm has been a very confusing and cumbersome process. And while our volunteer coach has been putting a number of things on his personal credit card, getting him reimbursed for those activities have not been smooth. And he's still waiting on payment for a number of those items. So how do we move forward? Why am I here? Why did I ask to be agendized at the Academic Senate? There's a number of these items that are 10+1. So for instance, we are currently under, again, the Office of Student Life. So we are a full-on athletic team that is going to national championship. We're number 8 in the nation. And so our, cost this season has been upwards of $20,000 to $30,000. I think my wedding didn't even cost that much. So when we are asking this money from the foundation, we're having these conversations, and Vice President Villagomez is finding us money here or there to do these things. There's not a holistic conversation happening at the college. What college do we want to be? How do we want to move forward? Who do we want to support? Who do we not want to support? So my suggestion to the Senate, and this is fully in 10+1, is to create a women's lacrosse program the same way that we create any athletic program under athletics or PE. And so those are designated BP 4021. And then also BP and APs 3255. And again, they're hot links for you. But it's my belief, and I've sent this out via email, and I've included Kathy, and I've included Tara, and I've said, we need to start with a women's lacrosse curriculum. And thank goodness for us, we again don't have to reinvent this wheel. Fullerton College, also a California Community College, also in the CCC2A, has shared their women's lacrosse curriculum with us. 3 units, CSU, UC transferable. And if you look at it, it's very similar to our soccer curriculum. So in terms of needing expert folks to write this curriculum, it's my contention that you wouldn't necessarily need an expertise in women's lacrosse to write this curriculum. And it's my understanding that we have, faculty stipends through NTCC and things like that to support the expansion of women's lacrosse. So to me, it seems like a no-brainer that we could develop this curriculum and very quickly get it through our CAC committee so that we can start moving towards being a CCC2A team. Now, it's my understanding the athletics department said, well, we don't want women's lacrosse and this isn't our area because you're not a triple C 2A team. And that's fair. So if we're staying under Office of Student Life, let us stay under Office of Student Life. However, we need a mechanism. And so whether we're under athletics or whether we're under Office of Student Life, we need a mechanism to create a budget and have it go through our governance processes and have people vet it and have people rank it and allot us whatever they feel as though they're allotting us. So whether that's under Office of Student Life or under athletics, let's make those policy changes. And again, this is 10+1. So AP 5700 is intercollegiate athletics. If you look at that AP, it's very short. There's not a lot there. And it's my contention, and again, you know, this isn't the hill I'm going to die on, but we do need a pathway for any of these sports to move from Office of Student Life to athletics. And here's the thing about SBCC. We pride ourselves on being number one. We pride ourselves on being innovative. We pride ourselves on being ahead of the curve. It is very clear that women's lacrosse in general is going to be a triple C 2A athletic team in very short time. So I talked about that 3 prongs and I said, right now, you know, we're not meeting 1, we're not meeting 2. Right now, today, yeah, we're meeting the 3rd prong. And that's because women's lacrosse players have not sent letters to athletics saying that they want a team. That is no longer the case. We have sent dozens of letters stating that we want to be a team. And then the other thing is that there's not sufficient interest. I think we've proved to the entire campus that there is sufficient interest. So perhaps an argument can be made, well, to meet Title IX, you need active competition within a 90-mile radius. So it could be that Santa Barbara City College argues that we do not have other California community colleges within a 90-mile radius to play against, and that is true. However, we play against Cal Poly, UCLA, UCSB, and the list goes on. So while we may not have triple C people to play against, and we are not a triple C 2A sport, there is sufficient competition. So I have to ask you all as the faculty body, are we going to continue to honestly meet that 3rd prong? And it's my contention again that we won't. The other thing I want to mention to you all is that regardless or not we're meeting legislation or not, again, do we want to be the school that is highly reactive to ever-changing landscape and ever-changing sports offerings at schools? Or do we want to be the college that is getting ahead of the curve and attracting students to our college? I know that we have a downturn in enrollment, and bringing them here and having them play at the level that we have shown repeatedly that we can play at. And so I know what my opinion is on that matter, and so it's up to the Senate to decide. So with that, you know, I was already reminded once that, you know, I already took up too much time, so I'm not going to show you the video. But I just want to say thank you, faculty on the Senate, senators. And please wish us luck at nationals. And I'd love to answer the questions that Ruth and Ellen and anybody else have.
Well, great.
Go for it.
Thanks for this and for all the effort that you're putting into this. One, I'm gonna need you to proctor an exam at nationals.
I said I
So I
would.
haven't, yeah, 2 is to clarify the question here. I haven't been following this or the Board of Trustees for my own reasons, but why is it going like this? Why is it coming here? I mean, it's great, it's fabulous that you're telling us about this, but like, we don't require this of any other program. Like, it should have. Why was there? We should have gone through like a program creation, curricular, and it's informational, and that was pursued to make it a formal club.
So first of all, we are a formal club under the.
Sorry, a
auspices.
formal, right, athletics team.
So a number of times athletics and PE have been looped into these conversations and CC'd on emails and requested airtime, let's say, in a conversation around this. And repeatedly, it hasn't gone anywhere.
That's where it needs to start, right? So you did.
I agree. I did it and I did it many times.
Okay, so I was wondering like if you circumvented that, because I was gonna suggest that's where you should have started, but it sounds like you did.
Well,
not.
and in fact, you know, I came onto this team very late, so I was not a faculty advisor for this team until this academic year, of course. And the players of the team went to a number of people in athletics and PE and asked to become a team. And if anybody who has been following the board of trustees, and I know you have, Ruth, they went and gave public comment because they felt they were receiving the brush off about creating this team very early on.
Okay.
So very early on, these conversations were trying to be had via email, via a number of different avenues, and at a certain point, it became very clear that this needed to be a grassroots, you know, effort. And so that's what we did.
Okay, so that's why it's getting the mature time now. That's good, I'm glad.
Absolutely, and I'm here to say what's the way forward.
Yeah, and I think you said it. I actually wrote it down as soon as you started speaking. I was like, this is a no-brainer.
Oh, it's a no-brainer. And it's been a no-brainer.
And the other thing I'm gonna say in terms of budget line, those are very easy to create. Our own Jeff Walker gets an automatic check every month for stipends, and those are then the students come and say, here are our per diems, and then afterwards, there's a return of funds for that.
So it's
So
meal money.
it can, right, but I'm saying
So everybody
budget
gets
line,
that.
right.
Okay,
that's
so
what I'm
real
saying,
money,
that budget
everybody
line
gets that. So we have
can
players
be
that,
easily created.
yes, we have players that not
Great
only
point.
bought their own jerseys, but they were also driving themselves to the games. So in terms of liability, and this is something that I shared many times with the administration at the school, before we got the Playas Stadium turf time, we were playing in Pershing Park, or UCSB would let us use their rec field. And I kept saying, really? As an official club team and players wearing SBCC paraphernalia, you want us playing at Pershing Park? And so what, they can twist their ankles or twist their knees, and then their parents can sue the college because we're an official club and we don't have playing, you know, a reasonable playing field. And then also, I mean, I remember a couple years ago at the board of trustees, a number of students came forward and said, hey, we're getting shin splints. We want a new turf. And it was my understanding that that was for students. So to be told that we couldn't have turf time, or that other teams were being prioritized over us, especially off-season teams, the men's teams, that was a little bit of a pill to swallow. And Kathy can agree, and so can Ellen, that I raised this exact issue to them and reminded them that students came forward to the board of trustees and requested this.
Okay, Ray,
So in addition to
Ray,
the
Ray,
liability,
Ray,
we
Ray,
also have a volunteer
I
code.
am the Senate president and I am
We know.
speaking now,
We-
right? Thank you for that. We are
Thank you.
now we've gone through 1 hour of the meeting. We have a very full agenda.
I didn't.
I would-
the whole hour.
You've taken up about 45 minutes. That's not an issue.
Seems as though your senators are interested in this issue.
We have a very full agenda and we have 2 more Senate meetings left.
I
So
don't
I'm
agree
going
with
to,
this.
I'm going to call Ellen. You had a question for Ray.
I think, what, Ruth said clarified it, but just to be completely clear. What I understand is to make it into a team sport.
Voted to expand the committee for faculty resources and reconfigure the charges for a reinstatement of the committee.
Is that Lori? Someone is someone is
Why don't you stop,
unmuted.
Rick? Let's stop the share. Could you stop
Yeah, stop the share, please.
Okay,
I did.
I just wanted to clarify that. What I understand is that athletics would need to go through the process with CAC to create an academic program for women's lacrosse in order to make it a team sport.
So that's my question for you. I'm just some chemistry faculty. I think it would be a combination of athletics and PE to start at the programmatic level and establish that. And so they have been asked to do that, and it's my understanding that
That was my next question. Is there, do we know if there's any plan to do that?
I have set up some meetings too, after seeing Ray's board presentation. to investigate this.
Okay.
And
Okay,
I
good.
hope to come back on May 10th with some information.
So we're beyond the
Thank you.
investigation point though, however, because there's been a number of meetings with both our athletic director and our department chair, E, to establish these. So you're saying you didn't meet with Maria Villagomez about developing?
We did,
Oh, okay, so there was a meeting.
we've met several times.
Okay, cool. There was a meeting,
There was
so,
a meeting last fall, and there have been subsequent meetings, and there will be more.
so it's my understanding that expertise in women's lacrosse isn't available to develop the curriculum.
That's not it.
Okay, we are now calling this to a halt. We're going to move on to the next agenda item. Thank you, Ray, for coming. Thank you for the questions. You will have, I'll gather some information and bring you back information on May 10th.
I'm not sure that thank you is warranted, because I'm not sure that I feel very welcome. But to the senators, especially those that were paying attention and interested to this topic, I appreciate your time, and even those that didn't ask questions, the affirming head nods was noticed and appreciated.
Good luck with the team.
Yeah, good luck.
Thank you. We're gonna kill it at nationals, despite the non-support from the college. Good luck, everyone.
All right, we have coffee, we have cookies, we have a full agenda.
I have a question. We have special guests.
I know,
wonder if we
and
need
that's-
to reassess whether they should wait or what we
No,
should
so,
reschedule some things now. Let's just take a breathe.
well, we've got,
We definitely got it,
well,
but
that's,
I'm just thinking of the.
no, that's just,
Okay.
right? So we've got, up next, we have Beth with information about the library updates. Then we have the calendar item, which is an action item. Then we have the recommendation from CFR. So those next three items are all with our guests, right? What we could do is we could take the resolution on academic freedom, which is 8.01. We could move that after the OER update. And, yeah.
I do not understand what a hassle it's gonna be to try to get my slides up there, not having something in first. If we hold it class, I would be entirely happy to do that.
Okay, we can put you on the May 10th.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that. Move you to the May 10th. All right. So maybe next time. Yeah.
Yes.
I get
Well,
that.
she just sent that, she just sent that to me.
Thing where like, whenever you don't have to log out.
I know.
I would think of it.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing. All right, so thank you for that. That saves us a little bit of time. So then we're going to move to the action item 7.01, the calendar, 7.02, the CFR. We're going to move to the discussion about the OER update. Probably it. And that's probably it. If possible, I would like to see if we can get to the resolution on academic freedom.
But that, the guests are still, it's fine.
Yeah, okay, so let's start there with the calendar.
That would be me.
So that would be you.
Yeah, we're not ready for that one yet.
Okay, apparently not. So let's just go to the calendar.
Okay, so the academic calendar item, thank you so much for putting it back on the agenda. I know I was here at the last Senate meeting presenting the academic calendar, which you all approved. I know there was though a concern expressed regarding the withdrawal date for students scheduled or being proposed as part of the spring break proposal. And since then, I have revisited the academic calendar, recounted the weeks, verified with state language and local language, local AP language. And so we are able to delay the withdrawal date for students by a week to sort of minimize the probability that it would end up being on spring break. And so I'm bringing it back to you
to make sure that everyone feels comfortable with the 24-25 academic calendar with the new withdrawal date now being April 4th. I believe there's an attachment to the agenda, right, with the academic calendar. And so I'm here to solicit your support to approve the academic calendar.
Yeah, and I think, just want to add one thing there. What's really interesting is you found out that the holiday week just doesn't count. It's a null.
Yeah, the spring break is a non-instructional week and it was being counted as an instructional week, which is why it was being proposed as that Friday, March 28th, 29th, something like that. So we recounted the weeks, we double checked, confirmed that it isn't a week that we really should have been counting anyway. So it allows us to postpone the withdrawal date by another week.
Right.
To April 4th.
Kim?
I just want to make a shout out for
Yeah.
Jeff. He brought this up and we happened to have Wendy with Sabrina that
Yeah,
day.
Jeff
She went
and
and
Wendy.
conferred with him. So it's one of those moments where you think, oh, well, the people, they know, they set it up from counseling, but actually it was just an oversight. So it's really cool that Jeff still brought that up. So I want to thank you because I think this is a much more student-friendly date. So thank you, Jeff and Maria, for
Yeah,
taking it
the
through again.
reality is that we really don't know. We don't know anything.
We all like the team, team the village.
It does,
Yeah.
it really does. Well,
So,
the
yeah.
work group had checked on the dates and we thought, well, hopefully, since we still have to make sure we align with Santa Barbara
Yeah.
Unified School District, maybe it ends up being that it doesn't fall during spring break. However, then we looked at past calendars. We said, well, Santa Barbara Unified School District tends to use the last week in March as the spring break. So what's the likelihood that they won't do that again? And so
Okay.
there you have it.
That allowed it to happen. So anyway, thank you, Jeff and Maria, and I move to approve the new calendar.
Becky, thank you. All right, all in favor? And thank you, Tricia. All right.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so that brings us to 7.02 CFR recommendations.
Hi.
Hi.
I love that he looked at me with this big grimace on his face, like, not again.
No. Like, yeah, go on.
Yeah, she
You
was
bring up those,
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think his body was very supportive last time.
No, you were, it just maybe like too much.
8.01. No, oops, sorry.
That's
There's never enough.
Thank you, guys. So we, did what was asked from the last, we were here and we, created a membership membership list. As well as we cleaned up the language in the chart to make it more, inclusive of our, education support faculty. I want to give a shout out to Ellen for getting that started and she shared it with, the division and particularly part-time, right? Yeah, and so we garnered feedback that way. We had to put together the document you're looking at before I could officially take it to CFR on that day, because that had to be published. But CFR did look at this, we caught one typo. But generally, the committee was happy with it, especially our ed support recommended on that. So just to walk you through it real quickly, and again, this was Ellen's suggestion, I really like it, like, other committees don't do this, I like that. We're proposing, not just one rep from ed support, but one from counseling, one from DSPS, and one from library. So, you know, recognizing that those are different needs with different interests. I think that's really great. And then we added in, you know, of course, you know, someone in each division, but also a number of liaisons that would be new to the committee. So a liaison, I should like that, I really carry that. A liaison from the FRC, which crazily enough, we currently don't have. A liaison from the math lab. That was a suggestion that, you know, like the LRC, you know, kind of serves a different function.
Hold on just one sec. We seem to be having a technical issue. Tricia, can you see, what do you see on the screen?
Yeah, I can see everything and, you know, the hearing, I can hear most of what she's saying. It's a little wobbly, but that's okay. Yeah, the question I have is about the proposal, but I can wait till she's done with the presentation.
Okay.
So, all right, thank you. Okay, yeah, so in addition to an LRC liaison, an FRC, we were thinking of Math Lab liaison as well. And then a liaison from the Center for Equity and Social Justice. That was where our typo was. We left out equity in the name there. So as we talked about this at the CFR on Monday, there was an acknowledgement, you know, everybody's overworked and overtaxed and overburdened. Maybe not everybody wants to send a liaison. And I just really wanted to emphasize that this is, you're welcome, like we want everybody there, but if people don't want to send a liaison, that's fine. And it could be more informal that, you know, like there's a point person when we have an issue come up that maybe affects Umoja, then we know who the person to go to there is. So that's the membership that we're suggesting, and then nothing else changed under the charge except pretty much each part we added in a line or just a phrase relevant to educational / academic support. Any questions, feedback, insights?
No, like, I want to give a quick shout out to Ellen for making those changes. Thank you for that. Trisha and then Anna.
Okay, yeah, I think that there should be non-credit representation on there as well, since we are not included in any of those 10 divisions, and we need support with all the things that are mentioned on there. And again, I also agree, it was really helpful to have it all listed, the charge all listed, it really clarified things, but I do believe we need non-credit faculty listed on there as well.
I think that's a great idea, great suggestion. Thank you for that. Anna.
I was just wondering if there's a reason that EOPS faculty wasn't included.
So we talked about that on Monday. We didn't know if we should specify under counseling, do we want a representative from EOPS, from TAP, from, right? Like, how much do we break that down? We're happy to do whatever people want. But we don't currently have that representation on the committee, so it was hard to know. But again, we're happy to include whoever wants to be on this.
Ellen.
I think a representative from EOPS would be really important. EOPS programs support so many of our students.
If we do that, then we have 10 faculty from all the other divisions and 4 faculty from ed support. How do we feel about that? The other thing to do might be to let ed support run an election for who wants to be on the committee. I don't know.
I would say no to that. I think it makes more sense to have it codified in the membership so that there's no question about it, and it's just a less cumbersome process to make those positions, make sure those positions are filled. Obviously I have a bias being in ed support, but I don't think it's a problem having people from having more faculty from our unit, at Senate, for example, there are many spaces on campus where educational support faculty are in the minority, and the emphasis of the sort of the mindset, the approach, the point of view is instructional faculty. And I think on a committee where we're talking about ways to improve instruction and improve success in teaching and learning, we have those of us in ESD have a different perspective in that we see what students struggle with or succeed with in a lot of different departments. In the library, for example, we see which research assignments are really more challenging for students versus more supportive of their learning, and also the ways we work with students are more different you know, in the sciences, not to say all sciences are the same, but you know, science faculty in chemistry or in biology are going to be working with students in similar ways, whereas academic counselors and librarians are working with students in completely different ways.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a problem to have designated representatives from as many ESD departments as makes sense. And I think EOPS should be one of them for sure.
Cornelia, you have up next.
Yeah, two items also on the membership list. I was wondering, given that the charge of the committee is to specifically support part-time faculty, is there any way that we could include at least one part-time faculty representative in the membership list? And then in my role as FA liaison, I would like to offer, if this is something the Senate is interested in, that the faculty association could deploy a resource member to this committee, either from the beginning or later, if that's needed, or just if needed, right, that you can invite an FA person to come on the specific topics. Thank you.
I think maybe you can designate one of the 10 to be part-time, of the 10, change that. I agree that there should be part-timers on there. And in terms of the FA being on here, this is clearly a peer that gets a 10+1.
It's just an offer.
Right, so I'm saying, I appreciate the offer, and I will also say that whenever, I think that's always a standing offer, right, to request, and Cornelia and her team are always willing to provide input and advice. And in terms of the EOPS positions, I don't have to raise your hand again. I am in full support. And I think it's totally okay to have a fourth ESD faculty member here. And I think if anything, I'm kind of surprised not to see it there. But I think it's a critical position.
I just want to emphasize that they were pulling from our existing committees,
Yeah.
which is part of where they were getting that. And I think it's a great idea to add EOPS. I would rather add, and so now the committee is getting really big, right? So let's just think about this for a moment. I would rather add a part-time. So we're saying we want to add a part-time, add an EOPS, add non-credit. That's 3 more people on this committee. So let's just look at the committee, and let's just, because we're creating this, and let's see what you think. Do dual part-time non-credit? Yeah, I think non-credit has very different needs. I don't know who was first. Kathy?
Well, I don't think it's a problem to have more members, only because this committee has a lot of work to do. And I'm really afraid that every division isn't even gonna send somebody. So I think,
Yeah.
even though generally on committees, I would say it's getting too big,
Yeah,
but I don't know, I'm concerned about the workload already for what they are expected to do, so maybe having those extra people is okay.
I just want to get do we generally feel that way? Is everybody, like, if it's big, that's okay with everybody in general? Yeah, I'm looking at the two co-chairs over there.
They're smiling, so that's a good sign.
I totally agree with Kathy, like, there's so much to be done, more people the better. Okay, all right, so what we're doing right now is we're adding an EOPS person under, so we're gonna make it 4 ed support. And then we're gonna add non-credit faculty and part-time faculty. Tricia, is that still a hand?
Well, no, I mean, actually, it's just, yeah, I definitely support the EOPS because they have different perspectives. I know, for my students have gone over there. And then also, there might be some overlap, especially say for the Senate liaison, it's not to say that that person could serve as the Senate liaison and also be one of the other categories perhaps. So, but yeah, no, that was kind of, everyone else has already said what I was planning to say.
Thanks, Tricia.
I just have like a really naive question. What are the consequences if you can't get all the representation? There's like for MPS, we don't have like a EOPS person with us, but they're invited to come when it's appropriate. So is there, I guess like
That's a bigger issue. Yeah, just getting people to serve, period. And also there's just a lot to be done.
Right, well, it's just like if you're talking about a mentoring program and then like now we're failing faculty because we don't have enough mentor, I just is like. I'm just asking, like, what is the risk if we don't have enough people for now a critical committee?
No, it's a good question. And so I think this is part of, watch me toss this ball to the other side of the room. This is part of what the chairs will do. The Senate will put out a call for this, and this is what we can do as senators. You can do as senators is think, oh, this would be, you would be good on this committee, suggest this committee for people. Especially people that have a commitment to teaching and to students. Right, so we can all do this. But you're right, we have a lot, I think there's a loss of morale. There's a lot of committees that are missing people right now. Kim, you had your hand up a few times.
Yeah, I just want to say great to add EOPS and to recognize that, yeah, people can't always come because they're busy. And so committees can sometimes really make sure, okay, here's what we're focused on today. We'd really like to have you for this particular topic. It's true, we list this, people may or may not come. The other issue I wanted to raise was compensation for part-time. So for non-credit, they will be paid for coming, because all non-credit work is any extra work is paid, that's the deal, I believe. So I don't know.
We have to negotiate it. Yeah, we have to negotiate it with our FA, our faculty association, yeah.
So for part-time, I know that's been a issue for us in the past, so I think that given that we're recognizing the importance for part-time, I mean, I would love to see us actually support maybe a cohort of part-time to be paid to participate in the first. And I don't know what kind of funds you guys have left from grants and stuff, but it just seems like maybe now we got to get how do you do it left? But we're recognizing the importance of this committee for especially our part-time faculty. And so I do think many full-timers are really good at listening to their part-time colleagues and communicating needs, but I wonder if I definitely support part-time faculty. I wonder if even more, but I'm concerned about the pay issue. So I sort of wanted to see if we could maybe look into compensation for 1 to 3 part-time faculty.
If only we
In
had,
addition to the non-credit.
only we had a VPAA.
Me too.
Had an FA president. With negotiations and the
Only we had both in the same room.
I expected this coming. I think especially with our certification of online teaching that we're all invested in, and I think that might be partly in Cornelia's mind with the FA. There's a workplace issue eventually, maybe, but yeah. So could that be a signal we could send with this new committee? I don't think we need to decide that now to approve it. I think we should approve it, adding the EOPS, the non-credit member,
Part-time member.
and at least 1 part-time member, and then we can approve it with that and look into the compensation.
Just to follow up, Stephanie, to your comment earlier, or your question earlier. Senate committees are supposed to take priority before other committees. And I know it's difficult as a senator to go to your colleagues and say, hey, that club that you're supposedly advising that really doesn't exist, you're really not advising. There's actually the Senate committee position that you can serve on. We say it differently, but I'm emphasizing that because we all know many of our colleagues are like this, and I get it. We're overworked, and some of us just tune out. I get it, but emphasizing, hey, we should fill these positions before other ones. And sometimes people do respond. We do send out the emails, and our faculty don't send us.
And that's the beginning of the year sign up too, that you'll get the list. So, yeah, good point, Ruth, thank you. All right, are we pretty happy with this? So what we've done is we've added non-credit support, part-time, and EOPS. Yeah, sorry, Sabrina.
Okay, I just have a recommendation, and Stephanie's comment kind of made me think about this a little bit more. I know we have 3 full-time faculty members in EOPS, and we request their participation on a lot of committees, because I think it's very important in terms of the students that they represent and the voice that they provide to these committees. And I know some of the committees that they are already on and how important it is for them to be on those committees. And I'm worried that we might be stretching them a little too thin. So my suggestion would be just to include some other programs as well, if the counselors and EOPS can't make a commitment to this committee, to other programs that see the same population of students. So like the TAP program, I know there's a lot of overlap with students who are in EOPS and in TAP, and with Emoja and possibly Raíces. So if you know, everyone felt comfortable with that, that maybe it wouldn't have to come from EOPS in terms of that representation, but it could possibly come from one of those other programs that serves similar students.
Yeah, Anna.
I do not feel comfortable with that. We have a part-time faculty member, so it doesn't have to be one of them, and we will likely be hiring more as our populations continue to grow. People in other counseling departments don't have the same regulations and stuff that EOPS has, and so I think that matters.
Yeah, good idea, but yes, okay. All right, any comments about the charge? You saw this last week, this has gone through, or last meeting.
Other than good luck. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So this is an action item, I believe. So we need to move to accept the membership in charge. Do I have a motion?
I move.
Okay, as Ben. Okay, as Ben, all right, Ben moves, and an actual single Tara seconds, all right? All in favor of this? One, two. Several, so how many? You've got, and where's your other one? Okay, right, all three, yeah. Okay, good. By acclamation, yeah. And Elizabeth, did you vote?
Pretty amazing.
No, but, okay, that's all in favor. Any objections? Any abstentions? Okay, one abstention and you voted yes, okay. All right, well, thank you, and thank you guys. Yeah. Give you it's very exciting, the fixing of that typo. Yes, absolutely, I got it here, and I'll send you that. And I'll amend the agenda.
So that motion was to approve the committee and the charge all at once.
The committee and the charge all at once. Yes, okay. With a twofer.
Yay.
All right, so that brings us to page 7, and our resolution is not. So we're going to move to the OER update. We have Josh in many visions today. This is Josh and Corey right now. Also, congratulations to Corey. You survived the possible heat stroke of the 10-year reception. It was,
Jeff was there too.
yeah, Jeff was there too. He's left, so maybe he didn't fully say, no, I'm just joking, he'll be right back. It was ungodly hot, but ever so beautiful. So really great to welcome you as a full-time tenured person. With plenty of yummies over there.
Your pastries were awesome.
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's great. Wow. Oh, that's pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got, so here's Josh with some pizzazz for us right now.
Oh, good afternoon, everyone. Long time no see.
You moved from one side of the room to the other.
I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update along with my co-pilot here, but who's really the lead on a lot of this work on ZTC pathways. Corey Bach, was nice enough to present this for the chairs at the last big chair meeting. So I suppose it's my turn to present on our progress here. So I'm giving the interest of time, I'll try to be expedient about this presentation. Just wanted to let you know, this is a zero textbook cost pathway that we are working on. And it's an initiative that we are trying to do in partnership with Melissa Menendez as Title V Grant Director for the RISES program, and also with Guided Pathways as well, and also drawing together what funding that we do have available out of one of our sunsetting Title V grants and Student Ready grant that I've been project director for the last 6 years. So last 6 years, the final year that it will sunset on September 30, but that also means that there's some funding and also some unmet objectives that this directly ties into. We also wanted to extend our thanks to our VPAA, Maria Villagomez, for actually pointing us in the direction of one of the state funded, she'll be back. One of our chancellor's office funded initiatives to be able to help campuses move in the direction of adopting more OER, or at least low cost alternatives for their textbooks. Just wanted to give you a little bit of background. What you're actually looking at on screen was a recent publication out of one of our closest CSU transfer partners, Cal State Channel Islands. They wanted to tout some of the praises of some work that they've been doing since 2016 to be able to move 2 of their majors to a complete Z cost pathway. They're calling them Z majors. They encompass communications and also nursing as well. And at the head of this year, they wanted to report that they have saved students an estimated $18 million for these 2 majors by actually moving communications and nursing directly to OER, or to find some other alternatives as well. And the reason why that's of interest to me is, one, we have a communications major. The thought that we could have from dual enrollment all the way up to transfer to the CSU on a communications pathway. And knowing that communications has been at the forefront of having more equitable scheduling, moving a lot of their work online, and therefore trying to find some zero cost alternatives for students was a big selling point on this one. And then there's a little bit of peer pressure that's added to this one as well. What we're seeing on the right-hand side is a list of the community colleges from, let's say, as far north as Kenyatta College, all the way down to Mission Viejo Saddleback College, and all the disciplines that are represented there that have zero textbook cost pathways. SBCC is nowhere on the list. But that doesn't mean that we can't do it, because we have had Guire actually working on trying to figure out what the wish list is of courses that could feed into a zero textbook cost pathway, and to also see where that overlaps with courses that have already adopted OER. So there's a lot of room for us to be able to join this list. And you'll also notice, for our STEM colleagues in the room, that no community colleges currently on the list have either biology or chemistry on that list. That, to me, is also something worth looking into. There are some realities that only you can speak to about what your textbook needs are, but it's something worth at least putting in your ear, because I think that that could be a selling point for the college if it turns out that that biology and chemistry are two major pathways that we could actually incorporate into this. But again, bragging rights here, folks. We are not on this list, but we could be. So the timing, I think, is actually pretty good because of the fact that we've had this massive shift to online education. A lot of departments have already talked about alternatives to having their typical textbooks because of the fact that they had to work with students at a distance. We have a lot of students who are taking classes with FBCC who are out of district, who are in a virtual digital desert, and where they do not have access to those books. We have had other programs like out of the Title V grant that have tried to pilot a lending library program. But on a limited basis, we were able to send textbooks out to them. But otherwise, students had to come to campus in order to pick that up. That's not a practical thing that a lot of students can do. And so, because a lot of departments have actually moved towards OER materials, that's a plus. And also, there are departments who have said, like for, let's say, a Gen Ed course at the 100 level, why don't we try to move towards a common reader and have something published digitally? Why not try to seize on that opportunity? So that's where our VPAA actually pointed us in the direction of this announcement from out of the Chancellor's office that would financially support campuses to be able to move towards developing a CTC pathway. And Corey, please feel free to chime in on this one about the requirements. It's a local degree, ideally for transfer that you're looking for, certificate programs.
It can be local degrees, it can also be degrees for transfer, it can also be local.
Again, prime opportunities for us to be able to move towards a ZTC pathway. Some of the legwork has already been done. Again, we've had Dwyer actually looking into this. We brought her in that actually changed our outlook on this. This funding actually comes in two phases. The first one we've already acquired. So that is 20,000 for the initial development of a ZTC pathway. A lot of this can also feed into implementation on phase 2. To be able to not only help faculty to research what OER alternatives that they have, but also for faculty professional development as well. And we have any number of opportunities in faculty professional development to be able to tie all of this in together. As I mentioned, when it came to some of the legwork for these ZTC pathways, what you are looking at on the screen on the right is a wish list of the courses that that Dwyer has assembled, at least to be able to handle the GE requirements for these pathways. So you're looking at what has been reconciled across IGETC and also the CSU transfer pathway as well. And I think that she's also marked this off on another spreadsheet as to where OER materials actually are. So again, a lot of the work has been done. GE is probably one of the biggest components for this as well that we are going to look into. On top of that, as I mentioned, this is at the intersection of 3 major campus initiatives. Raíces is still getting off the ground, but you have a cohort of faculty that are willing to move towards OER. And there will be professional development to help guide that as well. You have guided pathways where we have talked with Margaret about looking at the career academic pathways, those paths that have been mapped onto the use of the SBCC website, and for which one of our hourly workers on guided pathways has figured out how to be able to incorporate information about 0 textbook cost courses directly onto the maps themselves. That's Erica Ramirez's work. She is ready to be able to include that on the maps. And then there's what work that we can do with the Title V Student Ready Grant. Again, it is sunsetting on September 30. For those of you who remember our coordinator, Adrian Ardivo Morgan, in case you were wondering what happened to her, she actually took on a 5-year contract over at Ventura College. But before leaving, she actually piloted a lending library program. Wherever we cannot get faculty to move on OER, a lending library with books purchased out of the Title V grant is an option for us. She first started this work with HIT, Health Information Technology. And with Dwyer earlier this year, we ended up allocating a total of about $50,000 towards purchases of textbooks on a lending library basis for students. And that was actually a big draw for many students because of the fact that textbooks are just really, really expensive. And the lending library option also made sense because in HIT, we have students who want to hold on to those textbooks for an extended period of time. So the lending library idea, wherever we can, we want to be able to supplement whatever OER materials we cannot introduce into these courses. And to purchase a complement of these textbooks. As I understand that there is a gray area in copyright rules that say on a 1-to-1 basis, you can purchase hard copies of the textbook and then digitize them as well. So in some ways, you actually double the complement of books in the library.
Although you can't loan out the print one if the digital one is the use. So that.
Oh, that's,
Yeah.
okay, so
That-
it's
that's-
not really doubling it out. Okay, nah.
And can I just ask a quick question about that? Is the digital copy taken out for a day, or do they get these for a semester, or how does?
So, if we get, so, it kind of relies on the ability for the library to purchase an additional piece of technology software. So that it would, make the PDF available to the student as long as they're signed in the pipeline. As soon as the student signs out of that, it is now becomes available for the next student. I believe we can set time limits on it as we can with our print reserves.
And so it's 1 student, 1 copy.
So we technically could purchase 20 print copies and then hold those and then run out 20
digital copies, so then you're looking at cost and also, where to store.
That works too, yeah.
So it works as we move forward OER, it's a way to get us.
And as for the other books that Adrian happened to purchase on the lending library program for the Title V, those were sitting in my office for a time. All those boxes I just recently unloaded onto Corey's office. I'm trying to find space for it. But again, that's a solution for some of our students who happen to be taking classes at a distance. If we can give them that one book in and one book out option digitally, then I think that actually helps more students as well. So on top of that, just on the right-hand side, that's actually one of our professors of communication over at Cal State Channel Islands. That is Professor Jacob Jenkins. He's a communications professor who actually has been working on these Z majors over at CSU Channel Islands. This was a 4-year project that he worked on. We actually worked with him in the days of the IPAT grant. He was part of our cross-institutional learning community. So we did a lot of work with other community colleges on the CSU campus, and he was our liaison as well. On top of that, he's also my Facebook friend, and he's also a friend of my husband's as well. So we can leverage him for some assistance with what faculty professional development could look like, because not only did he have to work with his colleagues in communications, he had to be able to corral faculty under general education in the lower division to be able to move a lot of this forward. So if anybody can actually speak to professional development, that would be him. That gives us an opportunity also to be able to tie this in with new faculty orientation with the Affective Learning Institute, for which we actually have a culturally responsive pedagogy grant out of the Chancellor's office that we just acquired. Yay, we are good at getting money, folks. And then we also have ongoing with our online trainings with online culturally responsive pedagogy. Long Beach City College already has a portion of their training that we have inherited that speaks to the need for OER, for more equitable instruction for those underserved students. The idea that you have guided pathways, the RISES grant, the Student Ready grant working together also is a big selling point for the Department of Education. Their concern is how is it that you are leveraging other grants, whether they are state or federally funded. And so this is just a good thing, I think. So a couple of asks that we have for Senate, your recommendations here. We are bound to have other people who are going to be interested in this, and they're going to say, why is it that we weren't under consideration here? And for that, we have to say, this is pilot work. We're just trying to see if we can acquire some initial data. Did this work for students? Did we actually increase enrollments as well? Did we actually give enough support to be able to feed them through to transfer and graduation? So if that's the case, then this is just a list that we have brainstormed together about some of the ZTC pathways that we would like to consider. Biology and chemistry, maybe that's a conversation that you might want to have with your colleagues. That's something that we would love for you to do. Because of the fact that we've already been in communication with Sarah as well to be able to see if communications could feed into this. I believe that they are willing to do so. With the emphasis on ethnic studies as being a requirement for graduation at the CSU level, and with the fact that our own American Ethnic Studies major is a major bridge for the community, then we figured American Ethnic Studies might actually be a good choice. And then there's the work that we could continue with HIT as well. Some of the other criteria to maybe think about on the list of potential majors that we could maybe appeal to for this initiative. Time to degree was one serious concern because those students that happen to be in their majors longer will likely need financial support for the longer term. Also recognizing that we have part-time students as well. They are likely going to be staying with us for an extended period of time. That actually served the purposes of the Title V Student Ready grant, which was a part-time initiative with a focus on trying to pilot what a college for working adults looks like. I don't know what looks more like a college for working adults than to be able to say you are supporting those students' needs as they come back to college with financial support. Any gaps in our ZTC pathways across the CCs as well. Again, there were others on the list. Theater arts was also included on the list with there was no representation on ZTC pathways. And also what majors are a draw for our underserved students as well. That's also where you could say comm is a good choice because a lot of our student athletes and students of color actually go towards comm too. We could also use some help. There are obviously going to be some gaps in terms of adoption of OER. we could use some some assistance from our Senate reps to be able to work with their respective divisions and encourage departments to be able to move towards the lead.
Wow.
I'm so glad you brought coffee.
And then lots of other things. Thank you, Josh. Yeah, no, but Elizabeth has a question. Yes.
So my question about a DTC pathway, that would mean that every course in the sequence has a zero textbook cost option, every semester, right? Okay, all right, one third.
That's also where it may be also a pitch point for ISIS because of the fact that you have academic pathways that are defined by that program. And that's where you could say as a selling point for students to be able to enroll, not only are you going to get faculty who are trained in embodied learning practices, but also we are also trying to support students not just with counseling, but also with a CTC pathway.
Oh, sorry, I just one more thing. Can we get the slide?
Oh,
Yeah.
these slides?
We'll get the slides and I will, I'll let you guys know, I'm gonna add them late to the agenda, minute,
Okay,
and
sorry.
the agenda.
So within the CTE division, it's hard to find open resource, materials that they're just not out there. Because we've wanted this, but I heard lending library and the ears perked up, right? So are there funding options? We get a lot like Strong Workforce, Perkins, etc. I mean, it seems to me, can we buy those textbooks, put them in the library, and call it a lending library? And
That's what we did.
that's what we did.
That's what we did, at least to start off with HIT and whatever GE courses that students needed. On that note, when it came to the lending library itself, Adrian was a one-woman team that did this. She basically was the one who did all the legwork for getting the orders into the bookstore, having students pick them up from her and then returning them. We had about, for at least 2 semesters in a row, about an 80% return. But there were also some students who were asking to hold on to these textbooks. That's pretty good. And that also says that students, when they were told about this, we basically said, please return them because there are other students who could benefit from their use. And that was a very good call for them to be able to return this. So that is the idea. If we can piece together more funding for this, so much the better. We do have quite a bit in terms of the supply budget for the outgoing Title V grant that needs to be spent down. This is probably one of the best ways to be able to do so. And we can probably also ask for more with permission of our program officer as well.
So are you asking me to reach out to this person and get advice as to how to move forward with this? Because the G is going to be a constant, right? Once that's done, it doesn't matter the program, right? They're going to be in the same English path, right? By and large. So all I've got to take care of is my department, right?
Yeah.
And then once I have a lending library for my department, I can piggyback on what already is there with the GD.
Adrian ideally held it for what an academic pathway she had, but she actually said no to no one. Which also helps spend out some money.
But she's left, right?
She's like,
So
Oh,
is there,
can't
so,
reach out.
well, let's see, is there a way? Yeah,
You can talk to me.
All right.
We'll get it figured out.
Yeah.
I'm Cory.
Okay.
I'm the librarian. I'm the OER liaison. So, I've talked with Brittany before about trying to find OER. Like you said, it's impossible.
Right.
So I just want to put it out there. Funds can also go towards stipends for faculty to create OER. So I know you have so much time, right? But it's an option. But yeah, lending libraries, colleges are utilizing that as a stopgap, as long as your student can take your course and not purchase the textbook and be able to complete all their classwork. It's considered a UCC course.
Okay,
It's not ideal, and there is some wording in the actual grants that OER is preferred. But if we can use UCC, then that's what we prefer.
So Maria,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for letting me say something. I was going to ask you if there were, based on the grant parameters, if there's an allowable expenditure for either purchasing resources or funding faculty innovative, work
Yeah.
to contribute to the statewide repository of ZTC resources. And if not, then that would be something that I think we can justify with another pot of money that we might have access to as well.
So that phase 2, the 180 is for implementation, so that would cover, purchasing those, which Josh and I've already talked about. So, yeah.
Kim and then Sabrina.
To support what Russell was saying about the GE, that we had Corey come to the department meeting, because 110 and 111 are required for most degrees. And we use a lot of trade books, paperbacks, because they're inexpensive. It's also contemporary writers, and we want to pay them for their work, and we do like students to be able to write in their text. Is there any way to just buy some of these really cheap books and give them to students? Like you do that in the Promise program, we can just give them a paperback. And then it's kind of still get out of zero cost to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we could look into it. The other part of this grant is sustainability. So that would have to be available going forward. So I don't know how you should purchase each year.
Yeah.
Each semester.
Yeah.
But it could be like 11 libraries, I think. We also, I think through the library, we can look into purchasing ebook versions of current titles with unlimited user access. It's not always a given. I've already had a few faculty from the English department get ahold of me asking, can we do this one? And our vendors don't have it available on the platforms, so then we run into that. But that could be the controlled digital lending, where we have a print copy, we digitize it, and that's the copy that can get delivered out. So, yeah.
There's kind of workaround. Okay.
Then we had Sabrina and then Stephanie.
I was just gonna ask if you guys have talked at all to the Commons, since they do pay for all of the Commons students' textbooks, and they are not requiring the students to return them to them or return them into the bookstore for money. But possibly we could have them, after they use the book for their class, turn it into you guys to be shared with all other students.
That's kind of a beautiful community vision.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be sustainable. We got it.
Yeah, we still need to think about where to start. And who's gonna do the transaction part, but yeah.
How does it? If, well, I guess I was gonna ask if they purchased an ebook for a student, is there any way for the student to then hand over the ebook rights to you guys or anything like that?
No, the way ebooks work for the bookstore, they're not, these we're talking about students, publishers who are make it impossible to do any kind of lending. We can't even purchase them through the library to loan out ebooks. They just they won't let us. One thing to note, only about 10% of college students are in the Promise program, so it's not that low.
Yes.
Because it's full-time requirement. Okay.
I just want to go off topic, but if a course has a course fee associated with it, even though it doesn't have a textbook, is it still considered ZTC?
So the material fees are not considered in UTC, so zero textbook cost. So if a course has material fees, it can still be a UTC.
But yeah, because one option, right, I'm not sure, I particularly have a class where I wrote my own little mini manual. I think a lot of lab instructors do this. And so I actually we absorb it in our duplicating costs, but one of our courses, it has 100 copies. So we pay, the students pay a few dollars. And then that's a way for us to print and duplicating, and they just pay a $5 fee. That's the cost, right?
Can I ask you,
Yeah.
does it need to be free?
Well, it's for ours, we do because we go out places where we don't have Wi-Fi signal, and they draw and they make observations on there, so we just need to print, but that might be an option for us to make costs really affordable potentially.
So if it's a lab manual, that's considered an. The material fees is more like if you have to buy novels.
Or a handland, yeah, I get a microscope or a piece.
But I'm wondering if there's funding that would cover the duplicating cost, so that you could.
Yeah, so we don't charge the students for we just absorb it, but it just told me that they have to have a special hand microscope thing, and that's what we just charge a $5 packet, but our department tries to. I was just wondering how that a course fee is considered a course. Yeah, thank you.
So they buy like a.
Yeah, and then our department pays for the duplicating print, so they don't have to buy the manual from the textbook
So
publisher.
if they had a notebook, would that be material to a textbook? Like, could you have them, like something they draw in and they don't, have, you know what I mean? Yeah. that's
So we-
material.
Hold on, we got a question here from Alan.
Yeah, no, it was a comment, and actually, Corey just, said part of what I was gonna say, which is, if we're trying to find other ways to, provide material to students, but that involve a cost, then that's still a cost, it's semantics, it's still a cost to students, and I just wanted to remind us of the work we did last year around, all of that, the different materials fees and what should go through the bookstore versus CAC, and it was also wrapped up in the question of whether faculty should profit, individual faculty should profit off selling their own materials to students, which is something the Senate did a resolution about last year. So I think that that was a substantial part of our work as a Senate last year that we really haven't picked up on at all this year. And I think that's something that's worth picking up again. And looking both at the ethical aspects of it in terms of faculty profiting off of students, but also looking at it through this lens of how we can reduce costs for students in general. Yeah.
For that too. Thank you, Ellen, for bringing that up, because we did draft and pass a resolution here at the Senate that really defined what we meant by a materials fee. And for us, material fee has to be something tangible, cannot be digital, because of what you were just mentioning. And it also raises another really important distinction I think we need to help faculty to understand. That is inclusive access is not OER.
Right.
Oh,
Right? So a lot of folks think that their students aren't paying, any money and they would be eligible for this kind of program, but they are not, because it's just automatic textbook billing. That's all it really is.
And, sorry.
To follow up on that, so especially for our new senators, we did have an extensive conversation. There was a resolution, and I think there's a lot of work that can be done there. But we have faculty members who are making, my guess is about $200,000 a year off of our students. And it used to be for a blip of a year, it was public information disclosed. It wasn't before because it was going under a course fee. It surfaced because of pushback at CAC and basically me insisting that things to be out of the course fee, and Tara also supporting it. And then I think since then it hasn't shown up. I think it's actually gone under inclusive access. The moment it goes under inclusive access, that is no longer public information. So there's other ways we can be saving students money by not as faculty ripping them off.
I want to look at the time. We have about 5 minutes left. We can absolutely continue talking about this. This is important. Right, so thank you for that. We also have the respondents versus factorial, which I think at this point is just a super quick update.
No, I don't think it's versus, right?
Well, I didn't mean versus, it's respondents, factorial, there's an update, but I'm looking at Josh because it's the Josh show. And you.
We are officially out of coffee.
Oh, well, okay. You make the comment. No.
We don't really talk, it's 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a
It's not a 4 minute discussion. Yeah, you can come back next time. It's our last meeting,
So
so
let's promise to give them a time and have.
yeah, well, that's why we had time on the agenda. Okay, so let's get back. Okay, all right, so good, we've got Kathy on coffee. So let's go back then, let's use this time, keep talking about this, Ellen.
Yeah, just another point on the inclusive access, couple points, picking up on where we were last year, and maybe I have one more Senate meeting after this, but maybe for something that can be dealt with next year. Few things that all connect. One thing we talked about last year was whether inclusive access was opt-in or opt-out. And right now it's opt-out, meaning students get billed. And if they don't pay the bill, they can end up with a hold on their account that can affect their registration in the future and all of that. If it's opt-in, then there's less dire consequences for the student, and more work on the college's part, apparently, in terms of then restoring that access for the student once they realize they no longer have access to the textbook. In my opinion, that burden needs to rest with us, not with the students, of dealing with that. Another thing though about that is these inclusive access, like it's such a nice name, but really the point of these programs is for publishers to get as much money as possible. So inclusive access textbooks that are providing digital content, we can't get those textbooks for reserve for the library. So if faculty are thinking, oh, I can, charge, I can get the $100 inclusive access one for my students instead of the $250 print one. And those who can't afford $100 can get it through the library. That's not an option for those books. So that's just another plug for really prioritizing zero textbook costs over those other kinds of programs.
Can I ask a question on the inclusive access? Thing? Yeah, because it was my understanding when this was first presented in my field that inclusive access, they're like negotiated rates, which are substantially lower than what the publisher directly would charge.
Wow.
Is that at all correct? Or
So I've negotiated with my publisher directly, lower prices than their inclusive access.
But only for inclusive access,
Right.
but only for inclusive.
No, they're not
No,
for
they-
inclusive
I
access.
have
Correct.
one
Okay.
textbook publisher where I did the same. I
Yeah.
did the negotiations and they came up with $20 less.
Yeah.
So I did not do inclusive access, but again, like one of the things I was initially presented with when I learned about inclusive access as an instructor, that the rates are lower than this.
Cornelia, that is certainly the case of my view of art history, inclusive access rates are much lower. I didn't know I could go.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. If you need some tips on negotiating.
Yeah, please.
So the rates might be lower in some cases, not significantly, and then you run into, you can't rent an inclusive aspect textbook. Students can rent print textbooks for much lower than purchasing, and they can't sell back inclusive access books, which is where some students receive some of the funds. And there's a really good website called inclusiveaccess.org, okay, which is put together by some OER faculty, and it has all of these types of statistics and data. It's really, that's where I get on it. Thank you.
And isn't there an issue with if you get an inclusive access book and you decide to drop the class, you can't return, like, once you have the inclusive access book,
Yeah.
it's your mistake.
True. Maybe I'm gonna read
Yeah, there's no refund. All right, well, 5:01, adjourned. There you go. Thank
Do you need a motion?
I will, thank you for that.
I'm going to be resigning. So,
Oh my God, I was enjoying that.